We are going to hear just a very few words from me. Then we'll hear from one of our presidential scholars. Then we'll hear our performance, and then we will hear from one of our sponsors. And that's it. It's a short program, but we really hope that you like it. Put my notes here. It's all very new to us.
Anybody else but Marion's on, and Sarah and John, which is probably Liz and John.
And someone bypassed the mute too, which is exciting that we know that people can do that. Dinner, the fall mixer, the freshman orientation, and the senior honor court event are signature parts of the presidential scholarship experience. In light of the circumstances, we brainstormed, we worked real hard, and we're proud tonight to launch the Presidential Scholarship Spotlight Series. And as I said, we hope that you'll like it. Over the past year, we welcomed more than 35 new sponsors to the program, including endowments, estate planning gifts, and of course, the bedrock of the program, sponsors that make gifts every single year so that our scholars can graduate, in most cases, debt-free. And I know that there are a number of our new sponsors in the house tonight, so thank you all for being here and thanks for your commitment. And last week, 109 presidential scholars earned their degrees from UNM. That makes more than 4,700 presidential scholar alumni since 1976 when the program began. And waiting in the wings, 125 members of the Presidential Scholar Class of 2024 will join us in the fall. And with a graduation rate of better than 98%, we can expect almost every one of those new scholars to graduate 4 years down the road or sooner. That is what we celebrate at events like this tonight. The exceptional opportunity for students and donors to see, feel, hear, and touch the experience of giving and receiving, and the impact we have on each other by sharing our stories. And in this case tonight, by sharing our music. Just a few notes on our etiquette for your participation and viewing pleasure. Everyone is muted. However, the co-hosts are not muted, so you will hear my voice and you'll hear a few other voices, and of course you'll see spotlight videos here and there. We have disabled the chat function for this inaugural event because we just wanted to limit how many things we thought we could do very well on our first try. However, if there's something happening that you see that you think we should know about during this performance, you can chat me and the co-hosts, and we encourage you to do that. Just chat to all of us so that we can fix whatever it is that you're seeing. And lastly, those of you who are seasoned Zoom users, you'll know in the bottom of your tray, there's a reactions button. And if you've never found it, you can look now and just play around with it. You can do a thumbs up or you can do an applause, and you can do that as much as you want, anytime you want. We really encourage you to do that. And so while the spotlight tonight is on Miss Casey Ziegler, who is an El Dorado High School grad, who just received her Bachelor of Music Education and Fine Arts just last week, and whose sponsors are Jean Ann and Duffy Swan, who are here tonight. Even though the spotlight's on Casey, first I'd like to introduce a Los Alamos High School graduate, class of 2022, a Daily Lobo writer, and a presidential scholar, Miss Beatrice Nasoli. Beatrice, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Terry. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm honored to have you as my co-host tonight.
Thank you. I'm super happy to be here. As you mentioned, it's going to be an intriguing experience to sort of utilize the reporter skills, but in a completely different context and environment. I'm very excited.
It's great, and I've enjoyed working with you on this project, and I understand that you put together some questions for your colleague, well, your former colleague, now that she's a graduate, Casey.
Yes, and I'm very excited to hear what she has to share with us this evening.
And so you two will have a little dialogue, you'll have a conversation, some question and answer, and then we'll move on to the performance. Are you ready to take over?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, it's all yours.
Thank you very much. So with that, it is my absolute honor and privilege to introduce our recent graduate, Casey Ziegler. How are you doing, Casey?
I'm doing pretty good, Beatrice. How about yourself?
Good, thank you. How does it feel to be done?
Oh, it's definitely weird given the circumstances under which I graduated, but I'm so excited.
Yeah, and that's actually, we're really excited to hear more about what the past 4 years have entailed for you, as well as where you're headed for the next foreseeable future. So if it's all right with you, are you okay with just answering a few questions along those lines?
Absolutely. I'm happy to share.
Okay, perfect. So I'm actually going to start with like the bare bones, the resume information that a lot of people want to hear. Could you tell us a little bit about the degree that you just received from UNM?
Yes, so as Terry mentioned, I am graduating, or I have graduated. That still feels so weird to say. I have graduated with my bachelor's in music education. And with that, after I take a couple more certification tests, I will have licensure to teach any form of music from kindergarten up through 12th grade in the public schools here in New Mexico.
And so what jumps out to me from your degree is that it's essentially an intertwining of two majors, it almost seems like, because you've got the fine arts aspect of it, but you've also got the educational studies. So could you speak just a little bit about what that intertwinement entailed for you these past 4 years?
Absolutely. So it definitely felt like much more work than what some of my colleagues who are just studying music were doing. But I'm so thankful that the music education degree, although we do learn a lot about educational practices and theories, I'm so thankful that it's housed under the music department and the College of Fine Arts, because really to be the best educator in any field, you need to be your best sort of self. And to be the best music educator, I believe to be the best music educator that you can be, the best way to do that is to be the best musician that you can be. And so just being surrounded by the culture of the music department and the College of Fine Arts was so rewarding and empowering towards increasing my level of musicianship as well as my peers, so that we can be the best teachers for our students.
Thank you for explaining that so thoroughly. And so now that we've sort of addressed the academic obligations that you've experienced, could you just tell us a little bit about what extracurriculars you were involved in during your time at UNM?
Yes, so within the music education department, I served as a board member for our professional organization, the National Association for Music Educators, for I believe 3 years. And on top of that, I spent 2 of my summers as a new student orientation leader, welcoming in all of our new Lobos and really instilling in them the Lobo spirit and what it means to be a Lobo.
See, and that's always that, I mean, everything that you already mentioned at this point is just really cool to hear about. But something that always stands out to me is how individuals who are already facing intense academic rigor just take the opportunity to sort of give back to their community and welcome the incoming Lobos, and just the future generation of students kind of pass on the inspiration. I think that's super cool. So, and I guess now that we've addressed that, and this is speaking from a fellow scholar, I know that in my personal experience, I have had an incredible impact from the Presidential Scholarship Program. I'm only 2 years in, so I'm excited for the second half of what that entails for me. But with that, I was just wondering how the Presidential Scholarship Program has impacted you throughout your undergraduate career.
Yes, so I started in the scholarship program under an endowment, and I attended the fall mixer and the spring dinner, and I was like, okay, this is pretty cool, really tasty food, getting to talk to some really awesome people, both sponsors and my peers. And then my sophomore year, I was lucky enough to be connected with Duffy and Jean Ann Swan, who are my sponsors now. And just the connection that I've been able to build with them has been invaluable and is indescribable, honestly. And I'm so thankful for the opportunity to have been able to get to know them, to share with them. And yeah, it's just indescribable.
So thank you for giving us sort of the opportunity to be part of what you've experienced for the last 4 years. I always find it, again, incredibly interesting to kind of hear what fellow scholars have been up to. So now that you've told us that, let's look to the future. What are your graduate and career plans?
So I am excited to announce that I have been accepted into Florida State University in Tallahassee into their Masters of Music Therapy program. It's about a 3-year-long program, and I will be graduating as a board certified music therapist, and I intend to use that certification to work with students with developmental disabilities who really do hold a special place in my heart.
So certainly musical education and musical therapy in general is a pretty all-encompassing field, but you just mentioned that you will be focalizing more specifically on intellectual and developmental disability. So why does that hold a special place in your heart, if you don't mind sharing?
No, I'm happy to share. So ever since I was little, growing up, we had a family friend. He's a couple years younger than me. And he has pretty severe Down syndrome, but growing up, that wasn't any sort of identifying factor of who he was. He was just our friend. He would come over, we would hang out, read books, play dress up. And then, of course, as I've grown up, I have seen the absolute joy on some of these students' faces in music therapy drum groups that I've worked with, and in one-on-one instances that I have worked with them, and just the joy that comes to their faces when they learn a new skill or when they are able to master something that may seem so simple and mundane to you and I. It makes me speechless, honestly. And so I'm just so excited to be able to give back to this community that has brought so much joy to me, and to help them build skills.
Yeah, and your excitement is shining right through the screen. And I feel like that's just the package deal, is the fact that you're able to do what you're passionate about and what you're talented at, but also utilize this skill set to make a difference in the lives of others. I think that's like I said, I feel like that's the package deal for all of us here at UNM who are just kind of looking to the future and what's waiting for the rest of us. So I guess with that in mind, I personally I love music. I have an enormous appreciation for it, but I can't play an instrument to save my life. It makes me sad that I can't, but I guess it makes me appreciate the talent of those who can all the more. So because of that, I've just been dying to ask you, what was your experience in the fine arts program at UNM?
Unmatched, honestly. As soon as I showed up, as soon as I walked in the doors freshman year, I was welcomed into the community, into the smaller community of the viola studio, into the slightly bigger community of the music education program, and then just the music department as a whole. Really, anybody can make friends with anybody else there. And I came into college thinking that graduate students were like, oh my gosh, they are these incredible humans so high above. And really, they're just a couple years older than me, a couple years further down their educational path, and just being able to form connections with them, connections with my direct peers who I have had nearly every class with for the last 4 years, and then connections, of course, with students younger than myself has been really awesome. And I'm so excited to, thank you, Facebook, so excited to be able to maintain these connections as I'm moving on to Florida and as they are moving on to then their bigger plans in life.
Yeah, and I guess my next question would sort of be a more general overview of what you just illuminated. If you had to pick one memory out of the 4 years worth of experiences you've had at UNM, like one treasured memory that you will take with you for the rest of your life, what would it be?
This is a really hard question for me to answer because I can never pinpoint one specific memory. If I had to kind of pare it down to one experience, I would say definitely having been a new student orientation leader, and the connections that I formed through that program. I know I saw earlier in the list of everybody here, there are a couple of my friends from that program who are attending tonight, and I'm happy to see that they're here. And the colleagues that I worked with directly are some of the best friends that I have made throughout my life, and I know that I will hold those friendships really for the rest of my life. And I met people that I never would have met otherwise who are also doing incredible things.
So keeping in mind everything that you've said up until this point, do you have any advice for individuals who are about to embark on their undergraduate journey, specifically in the musical education department?
I would say probably the biggest piece of advice that I would give to incoming freshmen would be, I have two things. Number one, find your community, or as we say as Lobos, find your pack. Those friends that will stick right by your side through anything. And then the second piece of advice is to not lose yourself. And if you feel overwhelmed with the amounts of homework that you have to do, with, oh no, I have a performance in 2 weeks, but I still can't get this one passage under my fingers, if you're overwhelmed with that amount of practice and you're just feeling like you're losing yourself, don't be afraid to step back and take some time to reflect. Because as I mentioned earlier, I believe that the best educators are the best versions of themselves. And if you're losing yourself in the pursuit of that teacher education, then it's not going to be worth it. Take as much time as you need, but keep true to yourself.
All right, thank you so much for taking the time to answer these questions. I thought it was absolutely intriguing, and I'm sure I speak for most, if not all, of our viewers when I say that. But I know that the true reason why everyone's here tonight is to hear you play. So, but before you do that, if you don't mind, I was just wondering if I could ask you a few questions about your piece, first of all. So what piece are you playing and why? And then also, it's my understanding that you'll be playing the viola. So if you could just illuminate specifically what influence the viola will have on your piece versus, say, like a violin, for example, since the two are pretty easily mixed up, just to kind of give us some context before you start playing.
Yes, so I chose to play two movements from Bach's Third Cello Suite. He wrote 6, and it is said that through these cello suites, he was really exploring the limits of what the instrument can do. And to expand upon what makes the viola special, we are similar to cellos in that the strings that we have are the same notes and the same intervallic relationships as a cello. And so pieces that are written for cello very easily transfer over to viola. And we are, as you mentioned, often mistaken for violins because we play in the same form, in that I hold my instrument on my shoulder. But the viola has a much lower tone, and I think it's a lot richer and heavier. And I really do hope that that comes out in my performance.
Thank you for explaining that. Like I said earlier, I unfortunately am not too in tune with instruments, so that helped me a lot. And I'll be keeping that at the forefront of my mind while I play, or while you play. But with that, I'm not going to delay anyone any longer with my ramblings. It is, again, my honor and pleasure to introduce Casey Ziegler's performance. So whenever you're ready. Thank you so much for that, Casey. That was absolutely beautiful. Thank you for sharing your talent with us. For those of us watching, I would just highly encourage you to either do a little round of applause if your video is turned on, or as Terry mentioned earlier, use the Zoom icons provided just to show appreciation for what you just heard. And then with that, Casey, I'm actually going to turn it back to Terry because I know he'll want to congratulate you as well.
Casey, thank you so much. That was awesome. We really do appreciate it. I'm smiling ear to ear. It was really, really incredible. It's my pleasure now to introduce our next speaker, final speaker. Jean Ann and Duffy Swan have been sponsors of the program for more than 2 decades. They are both proud UNM graduates. Duffy Swan is the chairman of French Funerals and Cremations, and he is a very well-respected and well-known member of our community. And as I mentioned, they are Casey sponsors. Duffy graciously accepted an invitation to say a few words tonight, so I'm going to invite Duffy Swan to say a few words. Duffy, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well, Terry. Thank you very much. And I appreciate the privilege to be able to share some of our experiences over that, 2 decades of having the opportunity to engage scholars in our role as sponsors. And Casey, that was wonderful. To be able to hear you one more time was terrific. So thank you for that. As Jean Ann and I talked about what we've experienced in our role as sponsors over those years, we kind of likened it to a tapestry where many different threads are entered every year. Like Casey now, she's graduating and going on. We've enjoyed her thread in the design, and a new scholar will be coming into the mix. at some point. And so the design becomes different every year. The pattern becomes different as the scholars weave their different experiences and what have you. And so the variety and the richness is clearly there. And some, like Casey, enter into their academic performance very clear about what it is they want to do, and they stay with it all the way through. Others have some thought about what it is they want to do at the beginning, and then the experiences they have at UNM, different courses and what have you, cause them to pause and take a little different direction. And so we've experienced the richness of that transition for them. They thought they were going to do A, and now they're going to do B. And it's been fun to engage that along the way. And like Casey, with Nolan in this case, some have met that special person, a boyfriend, or in some cases, that becomes a fiance. And as our experience was last year with one of our students, right after graduation, I think the day after graduation, she married her special person. And so we had the privilege then, through people like Nolan with Casey and others, to bring into the mix, bring into the tapestry their threads and their experiences and what have you. And so for Jean Ann and me, what we've enjoyed is that these students really become more like mini tutors to us. It's been a few years since Jean Ann and I were students at UNM, for me back in the Jurassic era, where we engaged in cave paintings, not in viola performances. But, and so we learn about subjects and academic areas that we have very little experience with. And so we have the privilege to learn about fields and subjects, some of which didn't even exist when we were at UNM. And so from that standpoint, the richness continues to increase. And because of that, over the years, Jean Ann and I decided to add a twice per semester, at least that's been the goal, a brunch with one or more of our scholars, like Casey and her boyfriend Nolan. So we try to do a mid-semester brunch and then an end-of-semester brunch, fall and spring, to use that to supplement the fall mixer and the annual spring dinner that we are not able to do this year because of the pandemic. But that has allowed us then to really get to know the students like Casey, Nolan, and others in a much deeper and more personal way, and we have enjoyed that very, very much. And in Casey's case, to stay with that, her early on emphasis that she wanted to use music and therapy, especially for the special needs community, really touched us, because our youngest granddaughter is Down syndrome with type 1 diabetes. And so special education has been very much a part of the fabric of our lives for many, many years. And we were thrilled because the special ed programs have done so much for our granddaughter and our family. They have just really mined the incredible talent that these young people have, and it takes someone like Casey to bring it out. And so we have been richly blessed by her and also by Nolan as we have engaged them more fully. And so I think, selfishly, I think Jean Ann and I have benefited more by what the scholars, and in Casey's case, the boyfriend Nolan, have added to our lives over the years. And we regret very much that we're going to lose this opportunity with her. We look forward to the next scholar coming in to weave in the threads of the fabric. But Casey, I know that you will be continuing your great success at Florida State. And we do hope at some point that loops back to New Mexico and your talent here. So thank you for your performance. Thank you for the privilege you've given to Jean Ann and me to be sponsors with you and with Nolan, and to learn more about both of you. And so, Terry, I appreciate the opportunity to share these comments, and I'll turn it back to you.
Duffy, thank you so very much for your rich comments. We appreciate it. One thing that did not come out in this conversation, I know after having spoken with Casey, is she does have very specific plans after completing her degree to come back to New Mexico and do a career here in the field that she's chosen. So Duffy, thank you again very much. Jean Ann, thank you very much for the support that you've given Casey and all the scholars throughout the last 20 years. Beatrice, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Good luck to you. And thank you to all of our guests who've joined us today. I'm just kind of looking at the faces here. It's really wonderful to see everyone, and we really appreciate you taking your time. And a special thank you to all of our sponsors who support scholars. We really appreciate it. We can't do it without you. We're moving forward despite the circumstances that we find ourselves in, as you can see, evidenced by this innovative event that we've put together. And we couldn't have done it without you all being here. We have more than 50 participants here as our guests. So thank you so very much. Keep an eye out for correspondences from the Presidential Scholarship Program, from UNM Foundation, and of course from UNM. Casey, congratulations. Thank you so much for sharing your talent and your time and your treasure with us. We sure appreciate it. And Beatrice, was that awesome?
I think that was great, Terry. I think that was a fantastic way to kick off the Spotlight event that will hopefully be continuing throughout the summer. So yeah, I thought that was really great. Thank you so much for coordinating this and for graciously allowing me to co-host. Thank you, Casey, for speaking with us and sharing again, not just your experiences, but also your talent. And to the rest of you watching, I truly hope you have a safe, healthy, relaxing, and happy summer break. And as Terry mentioned, we really look forward to seeing you at our future events. And with that, as always, regardless of how unprecedented the times may be, go Lobos.
Good night, everyone. Thank you all very much.